So this is the paper we're going to work off of. As you can see, yesterday, what did we do? Yesterday, you had to do this Edgenuity quiz, exponential growth function. Most of you finished, good job. Some of you still have not completely finished that yet, so that's the first thing you're going to do. Then today, so the 4th, you are going to, as soon as we go over the practice problems, you're going to do one more quiz and that's done. So you basically have these 2 quizzes to do, which is these 2. I just rewrote them, okay? You have these 2 quizzes to do. And so in Edgenuity, every single quiz should be done. You have a total of 4 in this chapter. And remember how I said it's not going to be counted towards this 9 weeks. It's going to be counted towards the next 9 weeks, okay? Because we already have enough major grades in this one. Your IXL, so the 10 points that would be added towards all 4 of your Edgenuity quizzes. Remember how I said yesterday, you can do all the V's and all the X's, okay? There are 3 P's that you cannot do. I mean, technically you could do them. You could teach yourself. It's easy enough, but you technically haven't learned it yet. We'll be doing that after our midterms next week. So starting on Monday, we're going to do midterm review. And then I'll talk about how the midterm works, what that looks like, blah, 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 blah. Okay, so that'll come on Monday. So today you have to focus on these 2 quizzes, get it done. If you want to do any retakes on Edgenuity, get it done today as well. Okay, you have all period. Finally, if you still have old Edgenuity quizzes that for some reason still aren't done, those need to get done too, okay? So please make sure that you're getting everything done. All right, so yesterday we had a quiz on exponential growth. So today we're having a quiz on exponential decay. Remember, decay is basically the minus, the growth is basically the plus. So let's go ahead and flip to the back side. And, oh, letter D. Letter D was from the other side. Silly rabbit. All right, let's just cross that out. We don't need that. I don't want that to confuse us. Okay, so exponential decay. Let's go ahead and write. So let's go ahead and write the formula, okay? So the formula for exponential decay is going to be y equals, or f of x, right? It doesn't matter. Y equals and f of x is the same thing. So y equals a, parentheses, 1 minus r to the t power. So remember, decay means minus, growth means plus, okay? So you just have to read really carefully. There is one new word that we haven't really, like, you talked about it once, and then we kind of didn't talk about it ever again. So that's kind of what we're going to focus on today. Okay, so let's go over 3 things, and then we're done. Emily, this is the back side of the quiz review that we were doing yesterday. All right, so number 1, Jen is asked to write an exponential function to represent the value of a 50,000 decreasing at 4% annually. What is the multiplicative rate of change? This is kind of like the new word that we haven't really talked about. Okay, well, I don't know what this is unless I write the formula. So let's go ahead and write the formula first. Okay, so I have y equals, what is A? 50,000, right? A is always your y-intercept, what you start off with. So you start off with 50,000. It's 1 minus, I know it's minus because it says decreasing, and plus this quiz is all about decay. So it's always 99% of the time it's going to be minus. So 1 minus r, so what is r? 0.04 to the t power. They don't tell me time, so I just write t. Okay, so that's not my answer. My question is asking me, what is the multiplicative rate of change? Does anyone have an educated guess maybe out of right here? What is the multiplicative rate of change? Reed, what do you think? 0.96. 0.96. How did you even get that? 1 minus 0.0. Okay, so everyone wants to say the multiplicative rate of change is 4%, 0.04. That's not it. So this new word, multiplicative rate of change, means it's the number inside the parentheses. After you actually simplify it, 1 minus 0.04 is 0.96. This number is going to be the multiplicative rate of change. Oops, not rat. Rate of change. Okay, so basically what you really need to know and remember is what I'm going to just write right here. Okay, so the multiplicative rate of change is the number inside the parentheses. okay? So it's like the simplified number. It's not the 1 minus the 1 plus. After you simplify it, it's that one number. That's what you would call the multiplicative rate of change. It's just the number inside the parentheses. That's your new kind of vocab. Okay, and they're going to ask that a couple times on the quiz. So just read carefully. When it says, what is a multiplicative rate of change? It's just the number inside the parentheses. So you have to do the minusing or you have to do the plusing to get that one number. That's it. Okay. All right. So let's make it a little bit more complicated then. So for this one, what is the multiplicative rate of change for this function? So we said the multiplicative rate of change is the number inside the parentheses, but they're trying to trick you. Does anyone have any idea? Online kids, does anyone have any idea?
Negative 4/3.
Okay, so I heard 4/3 and then I heard negative what?
Negative 4/3.
Negative 4/3. Okay, those are all good, honest tries, and I'll tell you that that's not right. Grayson, what do you think?
Negative 1/3.
Nope, not negative 1/3. That's a better try. I see where you're going with that, but nope, not negative 1/3. Read. Nope, not negative. Tessa? Nope, not 1.3. So Tessa basically just changed that to a decimal, and that's why she said 1.3 repeated. But no, not that. Read.
Is it like 0.133?
Nope. Yes, Luis?
1/3.
Not 1/3.
Okay.
Any other guesses before you have just given up? So you'll see one like this on your test. That's why I really want to make sure.
7/3.
7/3, that's a good try, but nope.
Would it be like x over 3 or something? Like negative x over 3?
Nope. Okay, can I tell you guys then?
Yeah.
Please, please, please listen. I don't want you to be tricked when you see this one on your quiz, okay? So first of all, do you see how you have a negative exponent? That's different. Like we have not seen anything with negative exponents all chapter, right? Everything we've had this chapter has been like to the positive t, to the positive t, to the positive x, whatever. So this is a little weird. So this is what you have to think of first. Negative exponents, we learned last chapter that if you had a negative exponent, what do you do with this thing? You flip it. So technically, do you see how I have to flip it? So like the 3 was on the bottom, so now it's on the top. The 4 was on the top, so now it's on the bottom. Does that ring a bell?
Yeah.
Yes? Okay, so let me kind of show you the math behind it. You don't have to write this part down, but copy this first. And then I'll kind of show you the math, like remind you the math behind it. So copy that down first. Okay, so remember how if I had 4/3 to the negative x, like last chapter, I said, okay, if you have a negative exponent, put ones as exponents for things that you can't see, and then you distribute, right? So now you have what? 4 to the 1 times negative x is negative x, and then 3 to the 1 times negative x is negative x. Oh, negative exponents means you flip. So 3 to the x on top, 4 to the x on the bottom. So isn't that the same thing as just saying 3/4, all of it, since this is to the x and that's to the x, we can say all that's to the x. That's why I'm flipping. Okay, that's why this should make sense to you. Now that you actually like simplified, changed, but really simplified your question, now you can find the multiplicative rate of change. So what is it? 3/4, right? The multiplicative rate of change is the number inside your parentheses. So now that you simplified your problem, made it look okay, the number inside your parentheses is 3/4, and that's it. So that's your multiplicative rate of change. So guys, on the quiz, when you see a negative exponent, make sure you flip it first, then it's just the number inside your parentheses.
Yeah, like you have to do like 1 minus 3/4.
Okay, so hold on. Read before your question. Tessa, you asked, isn't there an imaginary 1? Where?
Before that, 1 minus.
Well, so do you see how like when they wrote this original problem, they didn't write 1 plus or 1 minus. They basically just simplified it already.
Oh.
So it's like saying me, instead of writing 1 minus 0.04, they just wrote 0.96 instead. So they had already simplified it. Reed, is that your question too?
Yeah, that was-
Okay. So guys, don't worry about the 1 plus or the 1 minus. If you just see one number in there, that just means they already did the 1 plus or the 1 minus to get this answer. Okay. Last one. The last situation that might be kind of tricky for you is you're going to come across a table, and when you get to the table, it's going to ask you what's the multiplicative rate of change. So some of you are like, oh, I know, it's divide by 5, divide by 5, divide by 5. Remember how we said that's not right, and they actually might write that as a answer choice. Like they might say 5, but it's not, because remember, you're never writing it in terms of divide. You always have to write it in terms of multiply. So does anyone remember, what do I do to see what it is in terms of multiply? Read.
Always put 1/5.
But how do you know it's 1/5?
What the negative sign is.
Okay, so Reed is saying that if I'm doing divide by 5 is the same as saying times 1/5. And let me show you that actually is true. So 10 times 1/5, 10 times 1/5, that is 2, right? And then if I times 2 by 1/5, that is 2/5. So yeah, I know it is times 1/5. So sure, my multiplicative rate of change is 1/5. That's my answer. So I'll tell you the answer right now. It's times 1/5. But here's the thing though. Some of you know that divide by 5 is the same thing as saying times 1/5. What if I gave you a really, really hard one? Like what if I said, like, here's my table. Like, I don't want you to be able to do it in your head. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Let's say this is like 17. This is 19. This, I don't know, whatever. Like, what is the multiplicative rate of change here? How do you figure that out? Because I'm pretty sure you can't do that in your head. Does anyone know then if the numbers are really hard to read?
Divide the second number by the first.
Okay, so that's the rule. If you truly didn't know, like if you can't figure it out in your head, you're like, okay, then the multiplicative rate of change is dividing the second number by the first number. You would divide 19 divided by 17, and so your multiplicative rate of change is timesing it by 1.1176, blah, 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 blah. But if you wanted to change that to back to a fraction, then, oh, it's just 19/17. So I would be multiplying it by 19/17. Okay, so do you see how I can find the multiply pattern? You just divide the second number by the first number. So just like this one, if you didn't know that it was times 1/5, just divide your second number by your first number. 2 divided by 10, I get 0.2. And as a fraction, that is 1/5. So that's how I know that my answer is 1/5. Okay? All right, that is it.